The next treatment you can use is your oxalic acid. And oxalic acid is a neat thing that is old on the market and new on the market. The newest way of treating with it, and it's not that new, but it's fairly new. I don't think it's actually approved for use this way in Ontario, but it's been used forever this way in Ontario. So. The way you can treat in the warmer months with oxalic acid is you go out in the morning or in the evening when most of the bees are inside your beehive. You buy a vaporizer, and this is just a heat vaporizer. You hook it up to a 12-volt car battery. It superheats the chamber that you throw acid into. And the way you treat with this is you make sure you have your lids on. If you have an upper entrance, you tape the upper entrance shut. You go to your hive, you put this little tiny 1/8 of a teaspoon of oxalic acid into this chamber. It's the cheapest method really you can use. It's like pennies a use. You go to the front door of your beehive, you slide this in to the middle roughly, and you put a rag across there so bees can't get out. You hook the leads of that up to a 12-volt battery. It superheats that chamber. Turns the oxalic acid from and it's a powder right now, so it's like a white powder, and it's completely safe when it's dry. You can stick your finger in it, it doesn't do anything. When you get it wet, it starts to tingle a little bit on your fingers, but it doesn't actually burn you. It doesn't get to the point where like the formic acid will actually burn through your skin. Unless you have very sensitive skin, this probably wouldn't do anything at all. It superheats this from a crystal into a vapor. That vapor goes up through your whole beehive, and you'll see it leaking out any little crack, and it coats all the surfaces of your beehive so that when the Varroa mite are walking around, they get exposed to the oxalic acid, and that kills them. It will not kill your bees. It's a very safe treatment for bees. You can use it at almost any temperature. I think down to -10, I think you can use it. And up to like 36 or 38 degrees Celsius, something like that. And you can use it almost as many times as you want, and it won't do anything to your bees or brood. So it's a very safe one. It is very labor intensive because you're putting that vaporizer in, you're hooking it to your battery for 1.5 minutes. You're disconnecting the leads from your battery and waiting 10 minutes before you pull your vaporizer out to go to the next beehive. So if you have a few beehives, it's very simple. If you have 200 or 300 or 50 beehives, it's very labor intensive to sit and wait 10 minutes every treatment you're going to do. And the oxalic acid this way is a day 1, day 5, day 10 also, because it's only treating the Varroa mite that are outside of capped brood. So if they're underneath capped brood, it won't do a single thing. You have to go through the whole brood cycle again. So if you're going to do the vaporizer method, day 1, day 5, day 5, day 10. Okay. With no honey super shock. The second way of using oxalic acid is the original way we've used it. And this way has been used forever. And it's really, oxalic acid was never used as a complete treatment for Varroa mite. It was used as a end of year, let's get the ones we've missed. And the way you treat with oxalic acid normally is you wait till November when it's cold, and a really cold morning when the bees are in a really tight cluster. When it starts getting cold, if you've never gone through the winter with bees, when it gets cold, the bees get really close together and tight in a ball, and they sit there and vibrate to make warmth, to keep the brood warm that's inside the hive and to keep the queen warm inside that ball of bees. So when they're in that ball, what you do is you go out to your beehive and you open up the lid. You pre-mix oxalic acid with 1:1 sugar syrup, and you get a syringe, or you get I have one in the shop. I had it right here. It's a bottle with a syringe extruder on it, but you get a syringe, and you take 35 milliliters of this mixture, and you look inside your frames, and you'll see the ball in the middle, and you squirt 35 milliliters of that sugar syrup and acid solution directly on top of your bees. That sugar syrup solution coats the exoskeleton of your bees with the oxalic acid. It doesn't hurt the bees. And now the bees walk around that cluster and dispense and disperse oxalic acid around the cluster. And in November, there's really no brood. So there's no Varroa mite underneath cells. So if we treat with that drench method in November, that oxalic acid gets exposed to every Varroa mite that's left, and it kills all the rest of them. So that you go into winter with no Varroa mite in your hive, or very low levels of Varroa mite in your hive, and your bees don't have to worry about being parasitized while they're trying to stay warm. Okay? And that's the normal way of using this. That vaporizer method is sort of the new way of using oxalic acid to treat your bees. Okay? And it's always been used in conjunction with another treatment. So if you treated with formic acid in September, you could go back in November and treat with oxalic acid to get the ones that lived through this. Okay? And it's not a bad thing to do if you're thinking about it. It's very cost effective. This stuff's, this is a 140 grams, I think it's $8 for this, it'll last forever.
So even if you vaporize, you should use another method as well?
You could. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want.
I understand.
Yeah. I don't vaporize because I have too many beehives. I use this in November on all my beehives as a end of the year. I'm going to get the other ones just in case they live. And I use it because it is very cheap. And you go to your hive, very simple to put on. I have the this jug with a squeeze trigger thing on it that dispenses 35 milliliters every time you pull the trigger. So I just fill that up and go around and squirt it in my hive. It's very simple. You can do a bee yard of 40 hives in 20 minutes.
So 35 milliliters
per frame.
Per frame.
Where there's bees.
Per frame.
So you just stand above your hive and you look down and see where the bees are.
Yeah.
And they'll be cold and they'll be holding together so they won't even fly. And you just squirt 1, 2, 3, 4, only between the frames where there's bees. You need to get the liquid on the bees. You don't. You have to read the directions. I can't really. I'm not. It's on the bottles. It's a 1-to-1 sugar syrup. This 140 grams goes into a gallon of sugar syrup, or 4 liters actually, not a gallon. It goes into 4 liters of sugar syrup, and that's what the ratio is. But there's the things on the directions for smaller doses is on the information sheet, and that works really well for a final treatment at the end of the year. If you're a natural beekeeper and you don't want to use chemicals on your hive, or not chemicals, you don't want to use pesticides on your hives, the oxalic acid and the formic acid are fantastic options. They're a little more labor intensive than some of the pesticides, but they're naturally occurring acids that already exist in the beehive.